Hello, good morning. Thank God it's Friday. So excited. Okay, how are you? How do you see this rainy Friday morning? I hope it won't stop you from hitting the road to go about your normal businesses. Me, look at where I am. I left Onitsha this morning. I'm here now. Okay, thank you. My name is Sijan Mauche. Do stand by now, so bring you the press review. Okay, welcome back. Joining me this morning to look at what the papers are saying is a comrade. No, he's not a comrade, it's Mr. Okay, Ugu. Good morning there.
Good morning, Niger. Good morning, Anambra. Good morning, Nigerians. Anyway, thank God it's Friday. We're going to hit the road, in what is going on around the world today.
Okay, welcome. Let's run because it does appear we have lost some time. Okay, number one story in our website this morning is retreat for public primary school head teachers in Anambra ends in Awka. Okay. And then Anambra State Government commences inspection of general hospitals. And then Anambra State Government embarks on rehabilitation of 9 roads in Okpoko, Obaru Council area. Anambra lawmaker Obalum Udoba drum support for Soludo to achieve vision. Finally, from our side this morning, Anambra State Government warns land speculators against encroachment on Mamo Forest Reserve. These and many more are the stories you'll find from our website, www.absradiotv.com. This morning. Okay, the teachers are getting prepared for the tax ahead. So we'll warm up ourselves to embrace new session, and perhaps that's why that retreat is. But by the way, the state government organized a holiday lesson that is going on throughout the state. I'd like to commend them. Or what do you say?
Well, thank you very much, IJ. I want to begin, by commending the state government, the governor of the state, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo. Of course, we all know that, he's a man, with a vision, so he's demonstrated that, a number of times. So we don't have any doubt, about what he's up to. So on that note, I will say, yes, the decision, to organize a retreat, for basic school teachers in the state, is a good one, because when we take a look at what is happening in our school system, it is important, that we take the bull by the horn, by at least preparing those who form our pupils, we prepare them well, so that they can, give their maximum input, in the task ahead.
Very important.
If you say that education is not faring well, you need to look into, what has been causing, the decline in the system. And it's been identified, that the quality of teachers, that are saddled, with the responsibility of teaching our pupils, they are not up to standard. So there is the Italian maxim that says, "Nemo dat quod non habit," which literally translates that you cannot give what you don't have. So I want to commend Anambra for bringing out time, to teach those who teach others, because with this
retreat,
ongoing, the teachers, will be brought, to the level of knowing their responsibility, their primary assignment. Okay. And with that, I think it will pay it will pay us very good, you know. So let me...
All right, let's join these two other stories. Anambra State government commences inspection of general hospitals. And then Anambra State government embarks on rehabilitation of 9 roads in Okpoko, Obaru Council area. Just recently, we started noticing some palliative works on our roads, which has brought a kind of relief to us because it does appear the roads went too bad. I saw that of the Amobia started first before every other ones that I've seen. I saw some in Onitsha, and there are also some here in Oka and elsewhere. Okay, so that is exactly what, you know, the rains are so much now, so perhaps we'll do the rehabilitation work now or palliative measure, and thereafter we'll now go into full-scale construction, or what do you say?
You've said it all, you know, because citizens are expecting much from this government, and the infrastructure in the system, you know, they are actually not giving the Anambra, you know, much, you know, to thumb up for, you know, and for the government, you know, to identify road as a critical infrastructure, you know, that will impact on the overall improvement of the state in all sector. I think it is a step in the right direction. And yes, if you know the state very well, and if you are conversant with the state of roads as it is currently, you will actually not be happy, you know. If you're coming from, let's say, anywhere you are, you find out that the roads are very deplorable. I was going to, Ibuku some time ago, and actually, what between Ichida all the way to Ibuku down to Ekulobia is a harrowing experience, you know, and this is, I mean, when I say it's a very busy road, I think I'm not even using the right word, but let me put it at that, you know. Then coming down to Onitsha, from to just the old road, within that People's Club, is becoming an impasse. And for those who have passed that road in recent days, a couple of weeks now, you find out that the little, you know, rehabilitation done there has eased, you know, that gridlock that usually occur there. So I want to say kudos to the government for identifying state, you know, roads as a critical infrastructure that would open up the system, you know, because if we actually want, you know, to address the problem, you know, the social amenities in the system, I think we should take road primary.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay. Okay, let's, for want of time, let's go to the papers and then find out exactly what is trending. Daily Sun is our first paper this morning. And beside the net template, I have this story that says 2023 PDP goofed by not zoning southeast. By not zoning to southeast. 2023 PDP goofed by not zoning to southeast. APC share. Now that's where that story is coming from. We may need to pick it and find out which of the chairman of the APC that said that. He has a writer that says predicts Labour Party, that's LP, will take opposition parties' votes in region South-South. Okay, other stories, soldier, 2 gunmen, lady killed in Aba. And then banner headline, they say angry Buhari orders security agents to wipe out terrorists. Wow. And then the writer there says, directs Humanitarian Affairs Ministry orders to ensure IDPs return unhindered. All right. Other stories coming from here. ASU federal government talks end in deadlock with 2 writers there. No work, no pay stance stalls negotiation. And then Education Minister asks students to sue teachers union. Wow. Okay, let's see the next paper from here, which is the Punch newspaper. The banner headline there says, endless borrowing, debt servicing goals 13.17 trillion naira under Buhari education suffers. Debt servicing, endless borrowing, debt servicing goals 13.17 trillion naira under Buhari education suffers. The writers, the federal government budgets 4 trillion naira for education in 7 years. The sector loses 837 days to strike. Salary arrears stalling negotiations, said federal government. No pay, no resumption. This is ASU saying. And then education underfunded. Federal government may borrow to fund sector. Economists warn. Down here, we have another story that said commuters groan, businesses short as Sango Ota Road collapses. Too bad. Well, let's look at the stories here before we look at all the papers. This debt servicing, let's start with Punch. Debt service in endless borrowing. Look at how much that debt servicing is engulfing, and the education is suffering. Aligning it with what went on yesterday during the negotiation, where the ASU is saying that no pay, no work, and I mean, federal government is saying no pay, no work, and the ASU is saying no. You have to pay us before we'll start again. When do you think this will end?
Thank you very much. I want to say, that before we think of addressing the system, finding the right way, a leeway to, the impasse now, we must first of all admit that we've not been sincere to ourselves and make a choice, decide to be honest, with ourselves. So what are we talking about? The problem we're having right here is all about fiscal thing as it concerns education. We know that in every climb, education requires funding. We know that Nigeria has not been, a very poor country that cannot fund its education. And we know that Nigeria has, been living, up to, should I say, the level of channeling much of its fiscal entitlements, into governance, at the executive level. At that point, no much complaints come from there, because allocations go there. The budget, being made on that sector is somewhat on the high side. Then the sector that will drive, the entire sector of the system is neglected, which is education. Any country that undermines its education is already stepped down, to backwardness. So what are we talking about here? For 840 or less than 840 days, or above 6 months, our students have been at home, and they're not worried. The authorities are not worried, No,
they're asking the students to sue us now.
But then,
do you see that one coming?
Playing undeserved politics, with critical sector of the society.
And why do you think federal government is finding it difficult to fund education in Nigeria?
I am coming, because I raised the issue of not being honest with ourselves.
Okay.
You appropriate the entire, maybe 60 to 70% of the entire budget, to recurrent, okay. And that recurrent, services, only administrative sector, then leaving the capital side of it. Then how do you expect that nation to grow? With the remaining 40%, a lot of bureaucracies will even render it ineffective. So how do you think you can move a step forward with that? So bringing it down to what is happening. Yes, the impasse now there between ASU and the federal government is understandable. Yes, ASU went on break. ASU went on strike, demanding that certain agreement reached between federal government and ASU since 2009 should be fulfilled. Of course, every responsible person, every responsible group, every responsible system, every responsible institution must live up to this.
You agree with ASU?
Yes, I agree with ASU.
Okay, let's move on.
Not entirely,
there are so many other stories to look at. Let's move on, please. National Star is that the new National Star is our next paper. Okay, and the banner headline there says, stop the stealing going on, pay us, ASUU tells federal government. Stop the stealing going on, pay us. With the rider, students should drag varsity lecturers to court to have sent their story. Okay, let's move on to the next paper, which is the Nation newspaper. The Nation now, still on the front page, said federal government insists on no work, no pay rule for varsity workers. It does appear the story is all we have here, but we're coming back to look at that story we saw at the what do you call it, the Daily Sun. Tinubu Shettima ticket best for Nigeria now, says APC share. With a rider, still reading from Nation, what transpired during Obasanjo, APC candidate Pali. Okay. All right. Angry Buhari orders security agents to wipe out terrorists. That was the first story we saw at the Daily Sun. With that rider there, the Direct Humanitarian Affairs Ministry orders to ensure IDPs return unhindered. Okay, to wipe out terrorists. That's the order that came from Buhari yesterday. Is that order coming at the right time?
For me, I think there is no perfect time for anything, you know, but by the time you give, you know, positive response to situation begins or starts the perfect time for it. So Nigerians, you know, have been overwhelmed, you know, by insecurity. And I think, though it is, you know, somewhat belated, you know, because we've been living with that, you know, and it's been giving a lot of concerns to Nigerians. But if actually there could be a change at this point, it is still a good thing, you know, because Nigerians need that change. Nigerians need to sleep, you know, in their houses and have hope of waking up the next morning, you know, because if you say it is coming belated and for that reason you don't want to appreciate it or you don't want to go along with it, I think you're not getting it right, you know, because do you even know if you are going to live the next day? So I think let's just start it. So for Buhari to give the, you know, the security agencies, you know, that order is a welcome development. However, I think what should worry Nigeria at this point is that on several counts, you know, Nigerians have been hearing, you know, such orders, you know, and yet security system, you know, continues, you know, to deplete. So I think it is no longer time, you know, the talking era is over. Nigerians don't take, you know, the talks. They don't take, you know, orders, you know, coming, you know, from that high level any serious anymore, because it has not been impacting on Nigerians. The orders have, you know, have not been taken down, you know, to really address whatever situation, you know, that it was meant to address. So we need to shift from talking now to acting. If we don't see, you know, a kind of, when even if it is not said, yet you'll be feeling it and you'll be seeing it, then at that point in time, there won't be that trust in the system. This government needs to rebuild the trust expected between the authority and their subject. So if that is lacking, I think it is a colossal failure on the part of the government. And that's exactly what is happening now. So they need to redeem themselves before the people. It is up to them. They have just a few months to go. Then, if APC wins next election, good luck to them. But if they don't, I think Nigerians need something different from what they've offered. It's just as simple as that. All
right, thank you very much. Daily Trust is our next paper this morning. And the banner headline there says, strike, no end to sight as ASUU federal government refused to shift grounds. Let's see whether we can get something different from the riders. Buhari insists on no work, no pay. No law backs policy, SAN. No law backs the policy of no work, no pay, and SAN is saying this. And then don't pay us and forget 2 sessions, lecturers. We're in trouble in this country. If you don't want to pay us, then you're going to lose 2 sessions in this country. Okay, holding us to ransom. Unpatriotic students is saying this. holding us. So now we don't really know who is holding you guys to ransom. Is it the your lecturers or the government? Atiku Wike, on top of that banner headline, Atiku Wike feud, IU's refusal to step down, stalls peace move. Federal government spends 18.4 billion naira on petrol subsidy daily. Finance Minister, 8 feared dead in Lagos. As just stampede. Okay, we're coming to look at this subsidy, but that's when we must have looked at the next paper, which is the This Day. Okay, on the front page of the This Day newspaper, very busy front page. Okay, but the banner headline there says, Usman, how Dambazao resisted pressure to topple Jonathan. We're only going to look at the writers there. Says he made a promise to international community. He wouldn't. Okay, ex-army chief proposes drastic reform of entire security sector. Declares size of military police inadequate for Nigeria's population. Buni cautions against hate speech, says nation's interest uppermost. Okay, these are the writers that came under that story. Usman, how Dambazao resisted pressure. Okay, let's get back to this, what's the name of the paper now? The Daily Trust, and look at the subsidy. Federal government spends 18.4 billion naira on petrol subsidy daily, and this one is coming from the finance minister. So of what benefit has this subsidy been to Nigeria all the while? Let me not just say recently.
Well, if you are talking about the benefit of subsidy to Nigeria, I think you will be taking, to be coming from a different climb, because we have been under subsidy, and then Nigeria is grounded at this point. Nothing is moving on. Nigeria has continued to borrow, to sustain, their expected responsibility in terms of delivering, dividends of democracy or governance to the people. So I would say that how can you justify a system that grounds your movement? It's indefensible. Now, we talk about subsidy, we talk about borrowings, because this takes us to the banner headline of I think the Punch, that talked about 13.17 trillion, debt servicing, taking the entire, a larger chunk of Nigerian budget for the year. So I want to say that it is apparent here that we cannot survive with that system, we cannot survive under that system. So what are we talking about? Right here, we have a situation where we're not talking now about infrastructural development in Nigeria, because we are left with nothing, to talk about that. Sometime in the past, some years ago, yes, Nigeria, has or had always been, referred to as the hub of African economy, as the destination point of investors, in Africa. At least, if not for the entire Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. The Western Africa, you cannot talk about the Western Africa without referring to Nigeria. But right now, all these things, we no longer talk about them. We are now concerned every day with insecurity, killings, kidnappings, and all this stuff. So how do we get to any meaningful point with this? Now the government has continued to borrow or sell it. Pardon me to use that word, but at a point where we cannot sustain the interest we pay for the borrowings, for all the borrowings we've made. I don't know how anybody can come out to justify that. However, I think the finance minister, had sometime in the past, come out to tell us, that we are yet to get to the red line, to the red zone of our national debt. However, some other opinions don't agree with him, because what remains about we are meant to understand, that we are already at 37.2% in our limitation of borrowings, before we actually go into the stress. So, but if they claim that, we are still in a 26 point something percent, well, I don't know, but the NB Nigeria Bureau of Statistics, should be giving us, statistics that reflect, the reality on ground, and what should give Nigerians the confidence that, yes, what we are getting is exactly what it should be. But be that as it may, the difference between where we could move further and then cross that red line and our comfort zone is not that much, and we should be concerned about that, because if you think of it, the borrowings we are doing, today, who would actually defray them? Is it our children? We are mortgaging the future of our children with this, and it will not stop, because the governance cannot, continue with this. We are subsidizing petrol 18.14 or thereabout, or let's say 18% of our national budget goes into subsidy. And this is a government that promised that we will deal with subsidy as far back as 2015. And then 7 years down the line, we're still talking about subsidy. And that subsidy, no Nigerian, you and I, you come out there, yes, every day you queue up, they will tell us we borrow money, and then they will tell us that queue will end. It's not ending. And Nigerians are growing. All
right, let's move on. Daily Independent is on this paper this morning. Foreign airlines get around a $600 million blocked funds crisis. Foreign airline, okay, somebody has joined us. Yeah, hello? Hello? Okay. A foreign airline gets around $600 million blocked funds crisis. Okay, the writer said resort to paying service providers in Naira, and then Nigeria's image on the line, aviation stakeholders. Flair Emirates Airlines for suspension of operation. Flair Emirates Airlines for suspension of operation. Okay, and then Guardian will come after this, Guardian newspaper. Expert tax Buhari governors on how to rescue ailing economy. Experts tax Buhari governors on how to rescue ailing economy. With the writers there, inflation rate ballowed by 170% under Buhari in 7 years. Why government must embark on urgent sweeping reforms. And then President, governors must agree on PMS subsidy removal timelines. And finally from there, focus more on agri-sector insecurity to stem food inflation. Federal government is saying this. Okay. These are the stories that we are going to look at. Experts taxing Buhari and governors on how to rescue ailing economy. Are they going to rescue the economy by borrowing and borrowing and borrowing? Of course, we have talked more about that borrowing. As we round off now, Wike and that story we saw there, Wike and the articles feud. How would you see that just in 1 minute before we go?
I want to tell PDP, to put their house in order. The party is not all about, it doesn't revolve around Wike alone. However, they must, accept the fact, that you cannot strangle the goose that lays the golden egg and think you can get away with it, just like that, So they should actually reconcile, put their house in order, if they think or if they hope of making any impact in 2023.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm afraid we won't be able to pick your call because our time is completely off. And for those of you that tried without success, we apologize, but this is where we're doing the cutting for this press review this morning. I've been around with Kingsley Ugu. He's a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much for coming, Kingsley.
Thank you so much, IJ. Thank you so much, India Anambra. It's much the time can allow us.
Okay, thank you. Do stand by now for our discussion segment coming on very soon.
unravel all innovations around science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. -3, 4, 2, 6, that is.
In Nigeria, how many persons have come back home or reported that I lost my job because robot has taken it over? How many?
This is In Depth. Hello, Doctor. Welcome to the program. The chairman, Anambra State Association of the Deaf, Mike Obiajulo Meze, educational consultant, executive director, legal practitioner, engineer mother, executive director, Wanopara Ncheta, Dr. Uju Okoye, and we're glad to have you here today. Whose responsibility is it, and how can we make sure that our children are educated concerning matters involving sex?
Parents need to protect their children before that age.
Why will people want to employ quacks to construct their buildings? You meet somebody from UK and you ask a person, where are you from? The person tells you, I'm British. But you meet somebody from Nigeria, the first thing they tell you is, I'm from Igbo, I'm from Hausa.
Improper training of children. I call them a more developed society.
The factor that results to that in Nigeria is glaring.
What influence will those kids have in society?
Create bad influence on the main reasonable children we have in this society.
In Depth with Priska Wankwo on ABS Television, Mondays and Saturdays.
Catch the excitement, fun and thrills on Jolly Jolly with Rume, your #1 pidgin television program, every Monday by 2 p.m. and Fridays by 5:30 p.m. on ABS TV channel 24. Relax and enjoy premium jollification all the way.
All my friends have gone home